I am really looking forward to seeing how Alabama responds to its third straight tough conference game. This time heading over to Columbia, Missouri for a date with the red hot and still disrespected Missouri Tigers. Now, I have to put my hand up for playing a role in Missouri being slightly disrespected. We have barely talked about the Tigers at all on this show, outside of some quick glances in the preseason and maybe betting on or against them this year. We really haven't talked about what they've done. So let's just do a quick little history lesson on Missouri so far in this 2025 season. They are the number one rushing team in the country, 310 yards per game. That is 30 yards above the number two team in the nation. I believe it's either Navy, one of the armed forces, but there's a 30-yard gap between 1 and 2. Missouri up there, 310 yards on the ground per game. Ahmad Hardy has been the best running back in college football. He has 730 yards. And then their quarterback, Bo Pribula, who transferred in from Penn State this past offseason, has added in 121 yards on the ground, which is always a misleading number because they count sacks as rushing yards in this sport, and it drives me fucking insane. But he has 121 recorded rushing yards with 3 touchdowns. That ground game, that potency between the tackles has allowed Pribula to be very efficient through the air. He's completing 76% of his passes, which is the 4th best number in this sport, for 1,200 yards to go with 9 scores and just 3 interceptions. So it's a dominant ground game, efficient passing offense, and then defensively, they've been just as good. They have the best defense in the country in yards per game at 198. They are a top 20 scoring defense at 16.8 points per game. They have the second best run defense in the country, allowing just 2 yards per carry, and have the 16th best sack rate at 9.02%. So now that we have that quick history lesson, here's the context. They have played Central Arkansas, Kansas, Louisiana, and not LSU, the Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana, South Carolina, and UMass. 3 nobodies, and then 2 Power 4 teams that have some of the worst defenses and offensive lines in the country. Important context. So that's what Missouri has been this year, and as you can tell why I probably haven't given them the credit that they probably say they deserve based on the stat sheets. So now comes in Alabama, giving Mizzou its first big game of the season. And you could argue Kansas-Mizzou is a big game because it's the reignition of a rivalry that they've been wanting forever. I think the Border War, the first time it was played in over 10 years. But Alabama is the first big game of the season. And Mizzou, the last couple of years, has been a team that has let down in the spots when it comes to the first big, hey, prove it moment of the season. You know, last year this team started 3-0, a lot of impressive wins, and then they welcome in Texas A&M, nationally televised game. They lose 41-10. By the way, that game, if you've been a ball knower with me since day one, and I mean day one before this show, the Connor Wegman hype train had never looked better than in that game. I was circling and circling and circling. I was like, told you guys, Wegman's the dude. He looked so good in that game. Really what it was, Missouri wasn't what we thought they were through the first 3 weeks. They got their doors blown off 41-10. It was not just last year. In 2023, Missouri off to a 5-0 start, and everybody says the same story. Their SEC schedule isn't that bad. Is Missouri a threat for the playoffs or a threat for the SEC? They host LSU in a nationally televised game. Their defense is horrendous in that one to a very good LSU offense. They lose that game 49-39. So this is a Mizzou team that has done this a few years in a row. They beat up and they look good the first few weeks, and when it comes time to hey, let's see something, they don't show us anything. And now they're also getting an Alabama team that I believe has potentially figured out its biggest defensive issue, the one that has haunted them under the Kalen DeBoer era, and the one that should have been Missouri's biggest advantage heading into this game. Now, I don't want to sit here and say that everything's been solved after one performance, but the way that Alabama handled Vanderbilt's ground game and the mobile quarterback was unlike anything we had seen under Kalen DeBoer, and I believe his name is Sam Womack, the defensive coordinator, since they took over at the start of 2024. Diego Pavia had 12 carries for 58 yards in that game. You're like, hey, 58 yards out of the quarterback? Not the worst thing in the world. But if you take out the one chunk play he had, it's actually 11 carries for 22 yards. The running back, Cedric Alexander, finished the day with 76 yards, had a breakaway touchdown score. If you take away that breakdown touchdown score, he had 3 carries for just 11 yards. Alabama in that game forced Vanderbilt to completely abandon their identity. The one thing that had gotten them to that point, to this turn success for the Commodores, everything that they had won by for a year and a half, they had to abandon because Alabama told them, you're just not going to be able to do it against us. Vanderbilt didn't register a carry, a rush attempt in the fourth quarter of that game. That is never going to be a style where Vanderbilt is winning games because of that, and the same can be said for Missouri. If Missouri is not able to run a balanced offense in the third and fourth quarters, that means that this game is going to be all Alabama. Now, unlike Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia, I think if Bo Pribula needs to do more through the air, he probably can to more success than Vanderbilt did last week. But we've also yet to see him thrown into a situation like this. And they had a high-scoring game against Kansas, but it was still the Ahmad Hardy show and Bo picking his spots when he needed to. If this Missouri offense cannot commit to the run game late in the game, they're going to have to play a totally foreign style of football that they've been comfortable with all season. And I just really don't like how that game plays out for them. There's also a really interesting mark about Missouri's offense, and I guess Alabama's defense too, that we need to talk about heading into this game. Missouri has been terrific at converting in the red zone. They've hit on 96% of opportunities, but a lot of those have been field goals. The touchdown number is drastically lower, still sitting at 74%, which is good, but not nearly as great. Alabama all year has been the perfect bend, don't break defense, holding defenses to a red zone scoring rate of 66.67%, which is the 6th best mark in the sport. Missouri might be able to have a field day marching in between the 20s, but if Alabama holds them to field goals or even missed field goals or turnovers like it was in the Vanderbilt game, Missouri might have a really tough time keeping pace with the Alabama offense, because I also think if there is one part of Missouri's success this season that is a little bit more fraudulent than the others, it's their defense. As I said, we watched Kansas march up and down on them behind the terrific play of Jalen Daniels and a really creative offense. And then we also watched Lenoris Sellers have his best game of the year and torch them through the air despite not having much of anything around him to work with. This is the first time Mizzou is going to be faced against a potent offense that is matched an elite passing game with a sturdy ground game. Because we said, Jam Miller went over 100 yards for the first time a running back has done that under Kalen DeBoer. This offense is steadily improving each week. It is going to be far and away the best attack Missouri's defense is going to be faced with all season. And I really don't think that there's much they're going to be able to do to stop it. I don't want this. I'm doing this preview and I'm hearing this in my head in the way I sound. I don't want this to sound like it's going to be Alabama by 50, that they're going to blow the doors off of them just like A&M did the season prior. But when I look at these two teams, I see very different things. On one side, I see one of the best rosters in this sport from top to bottom, one that has shown me tangible growth every single week, and when it has played really tough opponents, and there's been 2 of them, they've looked dominant during big stretches of both of those games. They looked dominant in the first half against Georgia, and at Vanderbilt in the second half, they looked dominant. And then on the other side, I have a team that has looked great all season. There is no denying how good the Tigers have looked, but they have done so against 3 nobodies in the sport and 2 very flawed and flimsy Power 4 programs. The stat sheets, the websites, everything that has been recorded on paper so far this season tells me that Missouri is the better team. These eyeballs and common sense confidently tell me that Alabama is the better team here. I think Mizzou will get some points on the board early, kind of like Vandy did. Maybe it's a couple of chunk plays from Ahmad Hardy or Bo hits a nice run. on a read option or a play action play, scramble drill. But for the span of 4 quarters, I'm going to take the Tide to pull out a nice win here by the final score of 31-23. So again, this isn't me saying Alabama by 50. I'm just saying I see 2 very different teams here. One that on the stat sheet looks awesome. And then one that I watch and I say, no, that's an awesome team. We're going to take them to win by 8 here, and we are adding Alabama as a best bet this weekend. We're going to buy the hook down to -3 to avoid any fuckery in the action there. But I do believe the Tide -3, it should be a best bet of the week because I think they are, on the field, a much better team than Missouri.